Hello, my name is Bebay. I work here at the Auckland Museum, and on this presentation I'm going to be talking about an exhibition that we did last year. It was called Carried Away, and on this exhibition we shown like 160 bags, all of them from different parts of the world. On this exhibition we had like 3 special bags, and they have like a case just for themselves, and we were wanting to tell their story. So the exhibition developers came up with the idea of making a video. So for making this video, together with my production manager, we have to do replica of the bag. So just because the actors cannot handle the objects because we have oils on our hands, and also there is more risk of having an accident. So I did this replica of Netsuke. Netsukes are like Japanese objects made of ivory or wood. They are carved and they're really detailed. Back on the days in Japan, they used to wear kimonos, and the kimonos didn't have any pockets. So for women it was a little bit easier because they could put their belongings on their sleeves, but men have like a special pocket that came out outside of their kimono, and they used to wear it with a netsuke. So the netsuke that we were doing for this exhibition, it was a really small one, maybe 60 millimeters by 30 millimeters, and it was a small eggplant made of ivory. So for making the replica of this one, I used a 3D scanner. Here at the museum, we have a 3D scanner of the brand Creaform. So how it works is like the 3D scanner projects lines or lights and shapes and shadows, on the object. So it could get a 3D mesh. It works really well with certain materials like wood or bones. So in this case, the ivory was perfect. So for using this, the 3D scanner also needs like a reference of the position. So we use targets. Those targets are really small, like stickers. That reflect light, so the scanner could know where it is. So the problem with these ones is that they have like a sticky side, so we cannot put them on the objects. So we came with the idea of putting something on the back, maybe some Tyvek or conservation material. It could also even be foam. So you just need to put them over the object, and you could have this reference. Another way of doing it is using like a clear cord, and you can stick those targets on the cord and later put it on your object, maybe like Christmas lights. So that will give a reference to the 3D scanner to know where it is. And obviously when you're doing a 3D scan, you want a 360 view of your object, but sometimes that is really difficult. So with this specific object, what I did was to make two scans. So first I scanned the front face, and then I scanned the back face. So I had 2 scans that later I could merge. Also, when you are scanning, also the 3D scan takes the information that is on the background. So maybe we'll take the table where you are scanning, but there is programs where you can clean and take all these things that you don't want. The Creaform 3D scan came with a program called BX Elements, where you can do this, and where you can also do the merging of your 3D scans. It also comes, you can capture the texture and the color of the object that you are scanning. So if you were printing on full color, it will come exactly the same as the object that you scan. After having my 3D scan ready, I have to do a little bit of post-production on Fusion 360. This is just because the Netsuke had like a small hole that 3D scan could not detect. So I just did this small hole on the Fusion 360, and my 3D model was ready. here at the museum we have a filament 3D printer. So we did some tests printing this Netsuke, but we have some problems trying to make it smooth. I tried to sand it, I tried to put in some primer, but at the end didn't work so well. So I think if I were doing it again, I will try to use a resin 3D printer to have a better quality and a better finish. But what we did at the end is just to find a filament to match the color, and we used the highest resolution of our 3D printer. And the results were really good. I just had to do a little bit of carving at the end and a little bit of painting. But yeah, our Netsuke was ready and the results were amazing. Once we have our 3D print ready, we had to do the body of the bag. So the real bag is made of paper. So I was not doing it of paper, so I decided to take some dimensions and make a 3D model on SolidWorks of these small pieces. For making them, I used hardwood because the thickness of the wool was really, really thin. So I was worried about any other material could break. So I used American oak and I sent it to be cut on the CNC machine. The pieces came out really well, and everything was ready to be assembled together. So I used a silk cord that I found on the internet that was exactly the same as the real one, and I attached all the pieces together. And after having that ready, we applied the graphics. The only thing is that when you're printing, it's really hard to get like that gold paint. So I also had to do a little bit of hand paint on the bag. And the actors used this bag for making the video. But after that, we also used it for making the mount. So this exhibition was a touring exhibition. So that means that it was traveling all around New Zealand. And in New Zealand, we have a few cities where there are earthquakes. So we had to overthink the way that we were doing the mount. So for making the mount, a coworker called Rick helped us with that. He's a really skilled person on stainless steel. So having that replica helps heaps of having a good fit on your object, and also reduces the risk of handling the object or getting damaged, because you are, I don't know, like with the metals you can damage or scratch the objects, or with your hands, oily hands. So yeah, I think it helped a lot with that. And after doing the mount and the video, we also used it as a prop because the museum was doing like night tours. So they were explaining to the public the stories behind those bags. So also the public had this opportunity to also handle the bag and feel it. I think this project is a good example of how the use of 3D technology could be the solution for different fields, like using these technologies for the making of replicas that will help with the conservation of the object by reducing the exposure of the object to human contact or light or even the weather. Another one is for display purposes, where it makes the job of mold makers more efficient and more precise. It reduces the risk of damaging the object and improves the way we display and handle the items. It's really different to have all these precautions when you're handling a collection item than when you are handling a replica. It gives you more freedom. it also makes it easier to get a better fit and help us to improve the aesthetics of the mount. As another good benefit of making use of these technologies is giving a different experience to the public using these replicas as props. It's a really nice way to bring an object that otherwise will be impossible to touch to something more real, more tangible, and not just a precious thing behind a glaze case. I think the public really appreciates that. And if you think about it, it's really funny when you think in the context of these objects. And when a Japanese from the 18th century will imagine that someday their Netsuke will be a 3D scan or they will be even 3D printed. I'm not saying that you need to make use of this technology for all your mounts, but definitely makes your job easier when you know how to use these tools and you applied it. Also, if you're doing really complex mounts, it's a great tool to use. If you have any questions or any thoughts you would like to share, I would love to hear them. Thanks. Hello.
Thank you, Bebay. That was a really great presentation. I'm sure there'll be a lot of questions. So why don't we start our Q&A?
Hi, thank you so much. That was a wonderful presentation. Very succinct, and yeah, it makes me want to play with these technologies. Yeah. Our first question is from an anonymous attendee, and they're saying that they use a program called Vectorworks. Do you think this project could have been done with that program? Are you familiar with it?
No, I haven't used it before.
Okay.
I've used it. I think it could. It's very much a compatible program with this technology.
I mean, if you can read like STL files or mesh, I think, yeah, it will do the job.
Yeah. It's a 2D and 3D CAD program that's capable of importing STL files. So yeah, it would work very well for this kind of work.
Great. I have a question about the different types of 3D printers. In our last presentation, we talked about kind of the materials that are used in 3D printing and their compatibility within a museum collections context. I'm wondering, as someone who does not have experience with 3D printing, if you could just talk a bit about like the different materials, like you mentioned there was a resin type. Yeah, if you could just elaborate, that would be great.
I think you could think in why or for what you want your 3D print. I mean, if you want it just to be a prototype, like a filament would be a good one. But if you really need to have a really nice finish, probably the resin will be a nice one. But for example, here on the education team, they use a lot the 3D printing for printing bones from animals to show to the kids. Mm-hmm. So there is this other powder 3D print that gives like a texture of a bone. So I think it will depend which is the project that you're working on to decide what do you want to use.
Okay. Mm-hmm. And I have another question. I was wondering about the use of this bag as a facsimile to engage museum visitors. I'm wondering how often you have to reprint that facsimile if it's handled quite a lot from the like how does it withstand well being handled?
Yeah, actually, I didn't have to reprint it or anything. It went through all these scans and it's still intact. We still have it and it still looks good. I mean, yeah, with this print and it was anything fragile with it, so it was really good for handling. But I imagine that, I don't know, probably, I'm not saying that all the objects, maybe you have some objects that have like really small details that could be easily to break, but not in the case of this one. It was just perfect to handle, and yeah, nobody broke it. And also we use PLA, so it's plastic, so it's really hard.
Okay. I do have another question about, well, I guess I just think about kind of my experience as a conservator and the kind of privilege I have with handling objects and, you know, using my other senses like touch and smell and yeah, just to feel how heavy an object is. I'm wondering what the weight is, like the 3D print compared to the original object, like how close are those textures, like how comparable is the weight, that kind of thing.
Well, I don't think it could compare the Netsuke with the real one, because that one was ivory, so that is a little bit more heavy than can we get on the 3D print that was lighter. So probably in that sense, you don't get that experience of the weight. But
as a mount maker, is there any way you could have some kind of intervention to kind of make it a bit?
Yeah, definitely. I could do like, instead of having like a hollow 3D printer, I could have the side to be solid. So maybe I could make it heavier. But I never thought about that. But actually, yeah, it's true. Like, it's something related with experience for the public, like to feel the real weight of the thing. And with the body of the bag, it was made of paper, so it was really light. And the one that I did on wood, it was also light, so maybe that one was a little bit more similar on weight.
Nice. I also really liked that you went in and in-painted afterwards.
Yeah, actually, that was a little bit of hard work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I'm just seeing that there's some questions coming in. So I'm just going to move on. The first question is from Karen, and she's wondering what time it is in New Zealand.
It's 11:03 a.m. from the 28th of October. So we live on the future.
There you go. And so Joe Dickinson, hello, Joe. They're wondering, is there a way to weigh a 3D printed object so that it is comparable to the original to further aid mount making?
Can you repeat the question? If we can...
Is there a way to weigh a 3D printed object so that it is comparable to the original to further aid mount making?
To weight?
Yeah, I guess so.
I think, yeah, you definitely could weight it and could compare. I don't know, you could compare, I don't know if I'm putting as example this Netsuke, I could compare doing different tests of 3D print and see which one could be more similar to the weight. You have some settings on the program of your 3D printer where you can choose how much structure inside you want to have, or if you want it hollow, or if you want it all solid. So that could help you with the weight of your 3D print. Also, you could find another ways of feeling it, I don't know, with resin or with another thing to make that balance with the weight.
Great. I realize now that it kind of tied into my last question. But so the next one is coming from Emma Smith. And they're wondering, what do you do with the facsimiles after they're used? Are they kept long term?
Yeah, they keep them because sometimes this exhibition also, like, not the whole exhibition, but it tours to schools. So maybe some images or the props also travel with that itinerant exhibition. So we keep them. We keep all the props that we do.
That's great. Thank you. And we have another question from an anonymous attendee who says, you mentioned the original bag for the object being made out of paper, but for the replica you went with oak. Is there any reason you went with wood instead of a sturdier paper imitation like Tyvek?
What I did that is because I'm 3D model on a 3D program, and I did it on a CNC machine. So yeah, with paper, I will not be able to do that. It was just to get in a more precisely, yeah, to make it more precisely at the real one. So that's why I use wood. And that's why also I use like hardwood, because the wall thickness was really, really thin. So I had to make it stronger. So that's what I use wood. And also, yeah, just to make it harder, because I also, it will be a prop. So it's easier if it's paper, probably, to be destroyed by kids or the public than if it was wood.
Great, thank you. And so our next question is from Kate, and they're wondering, well, they state first, we use some 3D printing and some hand sculpting and molding. How do you decide at your institution which technique to use? Is it a time or cost decision?
Probably that was a little bit more of time, because we had to do like a lot of, yeah, that exhibition was a lot of objects. We had to do 160 mounts for that one. So I thought that maybe using the 3D scan will be quicker way to do it. Yeah, maybe that was quick, but what took more time was like waiting or to send it to be done by someone else, by the, yeah, waiting the suppliers to come back with the results. So maybe preparing the 3D model and the scanning was quicker than waiting. But yeah, I think this time we did it by the timing, not for the price.
Great, and that kind of just ties into Sam's question, who's just wondering how much time you spent carving the detail on the 3D printed replica at the end.
That was a little bit of time, because I thought that will be easier. I thought like, I don't know, it's just like carving wood or something. But actually, when I was using the Dremel on the 3D printer, like the plastic started like melting. So it was not working actually how I expected. So I had to print a few of them and make some tests. So yeah, that took me a little bit of time also for practicing, and yeah, to get the real, like, well, I mean, like the more similar one. But I don't know, I will say, I don't know a timing exactly, but it took me a lot of time, like to printing more, yeah, just for replace the one that I screwed.
Great. So we have an attendee that says, thank you for sharing such a beautiful and exciting project. Documentation question. It's awesome that the museum found so many uses for the replica. Is there a note put in a database somewhere so that your colleagues across the museum know a replica was made and is available?
Actually, I'm not sure about that, but this project has been like shared, because was one of the first time that we were using our 3D scanner for doing a replica. So I think definitely people from another departments like approach to us when they want to do 3D scans or 3D prints. And also we have like a folder with all those 3D models that we have done before, so we share it. Also we have yeah, like an open source website where you can download those 3D models that we already have scanned from things.
Oh, that's great. Nice. And so we have another question from Sean, who's asking, is there a corrosive that can help with the printed texture instead of sanding?
A corrosive?
Yeah.
Not really. Well, I mean, I try to use the primer, as I was saying on my video, but you have to give a lot of layers. And there is anything like really melts PLA. Maybe if you use another plastic, it will do it. But Yeah, no, not that I know.
Okay. So we have another question from Joe Dickinson. Did you feel that the limitations on getting the detail of the Netsuke, which necessitated additional carving, were more to do with the scanning process, software, or the printer?
I think it was a little bit more of the scan. I mean, I think it's a really good scanner, but we were doing like something really small for his capacity. So I think maybe with a better scanner you could get a better results. But definitely I think was our 3D scan the one that couldn't get so fine detail. That was really really small. So probably if you're using another scan for small things, because actually we have two scans, that one's supposed to be for big things and one for small things. But the one for small things doesn't work really well. So I use the one for big things. And even the ones for big things, I think it captured really well, at least the essence of the shape. Yeah, but with those small details, it couldn't detect them.
Okay, thank you. And so I'm going to steal one of Laura's questions from yesterday. If you couldn't go digital, what tool can't you do without? What mount making tool?
Without being digital?
Yeah.
Oh my God. I think, I think a soldering machine. Yeah, to weld things.
Great. Thank you. How are we doing for time, BJ?
I think we have a couple minutes left. I just wanted to say that I appreciated the point that you brought up of being able to use the printed replica for aiding in the layout of the exhibition and the installation of the mount in lieu of extra handling for the object. I think that's a great aspect of using and having printed models available. And I was glad to see that you utilize that. That's great.
Yeah, definitely. We always have like this opportunity to touch the objects that nobody can do. But yeah, you never think when you go to a museum that you're gonna have this opportunity to feel it. So I think
Yeah.
that's a really cool thing to do with these replicas.
Yeah, I agree. It sort of serves a second purpose, or a third purpose, maybe beyond your original intention. But it's great, and I sound like I'm selling 3D models, but I think it's great that you can
Yeah.
utilize this technology for more than just one application. So yeah, a very, very cool project, and thank you for sharing with us. Really appreciate it.
Cool. I'm glad to be here. Thanks, guys.
Excellent.